Hello, everyone. We are going to get started very shortly. So we'll go ahead and start a timer right now. In about 1 minute, we'll go ahead and kick off the speed run of NinjaOne. All right, we'll go ahead and get things started. Today's webinar is a little bit different from how we typically do things. Normally, we might have kind of a broad theme of challenges that you face in the IT industry and how NinjaOne can help address those problems, how we can make life a little bit easier for you. Those examples tend to be somewhat generic just because we talk to people from all different industries. And it makes sense to kind of use something broad and more generic, just to kind of emphasize the ability of Ninja to meet many, many needs. Today's webinar is going to be slightly different in that I'm going to pull from my direct experience. Prior to working at Ninja, and I've been here at Ninja for almost 4 years, I worked as the Director of Technical Services for a movie theater chain for a little over a decade. Now, we did not have a robust endpoint management tool like NinjaOne in place, so it was a lot of manual heavy lifting. So I really hope to show you, if I could have a do-over with a more powerful tool today, what would I do when setting up a Ninja environment? With that being said, I think it's important to keep perspective in mind here. This isn't necessarily meant to be a template, a one-size-fits-all, everybody should do exactly what I am doing in my NinjaOne environment. It's more a way to showcase how I analyze what my workflow is, and then how the tool that I'm using can help make it better. So there is going to be, very specific, very niche things that I talk about today, and I don't expect that to be broadly applicable to everybody who's watching. It really is about how you can analyze what Ninja is capable of. It's an incredibly flexible platform, and you can bend and twist it to match your workflow rather than having to adjust your workflow to the tool that you're using. And so just something to keep in mind here. I don't want to portray this as being kind of the be all end all. Everybody has to do it exactly this way. I really want to showcase how you can mold the tool to fit your needs. Of course, this is a speed run, so I might go a little fast, something I am apparently occasionally known for. And because of that, like all webinars, this will be recorded. And so this will be sent out after the fact. You'll be able to kind of peruse this at your leisure so that you don't have to do everything quite in 60 minutes like I will attempt to do. With all that being said, let me stop the share here and start the share of the actual portal. And I also am going to go ahead and do a quick timer. I want to go ahead and get a timer on the screen here. There we go, a very tiny one. I'm going to go ahead and move that down to the bottom left corner right there. I'm putting 55 minutes just because of the constraints we have for an hour. I want to leave a little bit of time because we do have a giveaway at the very end. So I also need to, I think, yep, that should stay on top there. Now this is a mostly blank Ninja environment. I have done 2 things in advance. I want to be very transparent about what I'm doing here. One is that I did deploy a device. You can see right here that I did go ahead and deploy a device. Didn't want to leave that to chance on a live webinar. And then I also, if I go to administration and then into applications, I set up SentinelOne. I'm going to be using SentinelOne as the AV for all my devices for this webinar. And I did not feel like it was a good idea to have API keys publicly visible on a live webinar, so did that part in advance. Everything else, I'm starting from scratch. There is nothing else that is done in this environment. And so with that, let's go ahead and kick it off. So for starters, I'm going to go to the General tab at the very top here, and I'll see my settings. You'll see the organization name here, Dobbs Theaters, which is the fake name of the movie theater that is fake employing me right now. And I also have my time zone here, which is incorrect. I am East Coast, so we need to go ahead and modify that so that we're not using Pacific time. There we go. I do primarily speak English, or at least try to, so that can stay there. And then at the bottom, we have our installer settings. You'll see the top one is the agent uninstall prevention. I don't want my end users with the ability to uninstall applications to remove Ninja, so we'll go ahead and toggle that on. You don't need to do that prior to the actual deployment of Ninja. It is a retroactive setting. There we go. But I'm going to do it now in the interest of expediency. Then I see my advanced installer options. This gives me more granularity over how I can select what device role we're using when we are installing. So I will take advantage of that. And then finally, a deduplication down here. Again, not immediately impactful for this particular topic, but I do intend to re-image and re-provision machines over time. So it makes sense that I want to go ahead and make sure all that device history is in one single unified spot. So I'll go ahead and turn that on as well. I'll save that there. I think that kind of completes us for this settings page here. Let's next go down to branding. We have our branded portal here. You can see I'm in the generic portal for the Canadian instance of Ninja. And so that means I see all the Ninja branding. If I want to go ahead and give myself a distinct branded URL, customize my logos, I can do that here. And this is nice for technicians to just work inside of, but it's also useful for end users who might be logging into the platform solely to do things like submit tickets, to do self-service backup restores, or the primary function, which is initiate remote access sessions. That's certainly something I'll be taking advantage of, but probably not in this initial call here. So I'll turn this on right here. I'm not going to put a phone number in there. I will change this over to Dobbs Theaters IT right here. Please don't email them. I did not check if this is an actual email address, so please don't do that. Our help website, I'll actually define in a second here. We're going to use the branded site as our help site. That's where I want people to funnel to in case they need to submit a ticket. And so for the branded site, we'll do dobbstheaters.rmmservice.ca. For my browser tab, I'll also have this say Dobbs Theaters IT, and then my help website here is going to be https://dobbstheaters.rmmservice.ca. And so now I'm starting to configure something that is taking the Ninja branding out of the equation and using just my own branding here. I'll see down below that I do have some options here to submit a ticket, things of that nature. I think I'll go ahead and restrict this ability for now. Really, I'm going to be the primary system administrator. I'll have other technicians in here, but I don't think they really need to utilize a lot of this stuff. So I think I'm going to go ahead and delete some of these options down here at the bottom, like so. Now I also want to go ahead and get my logos in here. So I have pre-created logos in the proper dimensions here. And so if I go to my Speedrun webinar right here and into my logos, you'll see that I have a couple different ones here. I need my 140 by 160. So we'll go ahead and put in my logo. Thank you to ChatGPT and Dolly for creating that. I'll then go ahead and do my application logo here, slightly different dimensions. And then finally my browser icon, which is just going to be a film reel. And then for my application theme here, I have a few different choices, but I think I'm going to stick with the default Ninja Blue. And then we'll go ahead and save that. And so now I'll have the ability to log into this portal. And it will have all that branding. It'll replace the Ninja branding that we see here. Now next, I want to go down to my apps exchange. And so here, I want to start turning on some of the tools that I need to do my job. For starters, NinjaOne Remote. I need to make sure this is enabled because this is the remote access that I'm going to be using. So I need to ensure that this is available and it can be enabled for all my organizations. You'll see the ability to configure some global settings here like session timeout. I am going to enforce a session timeout of 15 minutes right here. And on session close, I'm going to leave that set to no action. That is because I separately have an inactivity timeout that I'm going to implement to ensure that if the machine itself is inactive, it will also lock, so I don't see a need to double dip with remote access. I have other settings here that I can utilize. I will, of course, uncheck prevent inactivity timeout there. I do want to synchronize the clipboard. I do want to clear the clipboard when it is when the session is closed, and I do want to disable the remote wallpaper to make it clear that I am remoting into the device, so the end user themselves is aware of that. So we'll go ahead and save those settings there. Other applications I'm going to enable, but probably not talk about too much on this webinar, is NinjaOne ticketing. I want to have this open just so I can make sure I have a way to accept tickets as they're being created. But this is honestly a big enough project on its own. I think it makes an ideal sequel potentially to this webinar. What does your first hour in NinjaOne ticketing look like? So I'll go ahead and save that for maybe a future webinar. And again, I'm not going to do too much with this today, but I will enable Ninja Backup so that I can ensure all of my devices are being backed up. And this will be extremely easy to deploy. Should probably take you less than 10 minutes to actually get the backup settings configured so that you can start backing up devices once you actually have NinjaOne deployed. And so now I have all the applications that I'm going to utilize. I will then go back up to the general section and into branding, and I'll go to the sys tray. And this is where I'm going to create a sys tray that is accessible to my end users. In my case, I'm only creating the one, but if I did have a need to have different sys tray menu options for different different organizations, I can absolutely do that. We'll go ahead and add in here. This will be a Dobbs Theaters sys tray. The icon will be one of the icons that we saw previously, that little film reel. The tooltip text will just say Dobbs Theaters IT. And then for our menu options here, we'll start to build out what our end users can actually do via the sys tray. What this looks like is actually on my screen here. You'll see that we have our sys tray for Ninja. And then if I right click on that, I'll get all these various menu options, all these different things that I can do. One that I'll talk about right now is the help request form, a great way to easily submit tickets into Ninja Ticketing or any PSA that we integrate with, as well as any email inbox, any email address. We can go ahead and relay what's filled out in these data fields to that email address. So this is a great way to make the ticketing process, the help desk process, better by just giving a seamless way to submit tickets right from the desktop. And so I will be taking advantage of this. We'll build out the help request form here. This will go into Ninja Ticketing, which is going to be the ticketing solution I use for this. You'll see all this additional information here is also included with the ticket that gets created. So everything I'm highlighting now, it's not filled out by the end user, it's pulled automatically and included in the body of the ticket. And you'll see environment variables at the bottom here. I can go ahead and add more if I wanted to capture additional information. We'll save that there. I will also recognize the fact that this would have been a very difficult workflow for me personally to implement because people wanted to call me. They just wanted to pick up the phone when they had an issue. And so for that reason, I have the help request form as the primary way. I wish people would submit tickets, but I am open about the fact that a lot of people aren't going to follow that process. And so I need to have a plan B. How do I identify the device that they want me to help with? I might sometimes get people saying, well, I'm on the count room PC. I'm on the one upstairs. And with 40 different locations, I don't always remember what that machine is. So in this case, I can actually include environment variables in this About menu. So it's very easy for them to right click on something, click on the About page, and it will actually give them the name of the device. So right there, this would just be an example of information that I can include in the sys tray to make that help desk process a little bit more seamless. I'll also add some quick links in here. They have to do things like order posters. So from Technicolor, we can go ahead and give them a URL, keys.technicolor.com. ninjaone.com. And so they can order their posters there. It does have to be HTTPS. And then I can do my other one as well, which would be Deluxe Digital. And so I can give them that. If I could type, that'd be great. Give them that one as well. And again, I did the exact same thing, forgot the HTTPS. And so right there, I have my sys tray, we've saved it. And so now I can have that on all the devices as I start to deploy them, and we'll see the deployment process towards the end of the call to actually see a bunch of devices jump into Ninja and see what that process looks like. So now I've set up my branding, I've set up my sys tray, I've enabled all my various devices, I enabled SentinelOne, of course I did that part off camera. So now let's start to think about getting some help. I'm the system administrator. I'm going to be doing the vast majority of configuration, but I have regional engineers who also need access to the system so that they can help maintain their sites as troubleshooting issues occur. So what I'll do first is I'll create roles for them. The roles determine the permissions that somebody has the ability to utilize. So I will create a full permissions template right here. I'll name it my regional engineer template. In terms of the permissions that they're going to have, I'm going to restrict some of the access. I don't really want them to have the ability to uninstall software. I don't really want them messing with patching. I want them to have the ability to view, manage, and restore backup, but not really go any further than that. I want to give them the ability to view maintenance mode, but not put devices inside maintenance mode. I don't want them to have the ability to configure activities. I don't want them to have the ability to configure any of these integrations here. You'll see here the Active Directory management and Active Directory discovery. We'll see the discovery portion a little bit later in the webinar, but I'll also deny access there, and I'll deny the ability to configure any of our AV and remote access tools. They should be able to utilize them, but not mess with any of the settings. In terms of organizations, they just can't they can't create new organizations, and they cannot delete organizations. I don't like anybody having the ability to delete but a system administrator. For devices, I will remove their ability to utilize anything that is not Ninja Remote right here. I will eliminate their ability to deploy new devices. Again, as a system administrator, I feel like that's within my purview. And of course, I'm going to give them view and update, but not anything that gives them the ability to delete stuff. I really prefer to have the ability to delete stuff as a system administrator and not my regional engineers. For policies, same deal, cannot create new policies, cannot delete policies. In fact, I'm going to go a step further here. They can view, but they can't modify anything. And then for the automation library, I will prevent their ability to create new categories, to delete scheduled tasks, and for anything inside of the scripting section, the automation library, they can, again, look but not touch. They can use the scripts, but they cannot modify them. And so I will save my changes right there. So now let's get some help. Now I am looking off screen at a checklist, an Excel spreadsheet that I've created to essentially say, what do I need to do over this speedrun webinar here? This will also be shared with everybody else. I'll give a quick peek right here. You can see my spreadsheet, all the tabs at the bottom of everything that I plan to import. One thing is going to be my technicians. You can see here, I have my technicians with first name, last name, and their email address. And so if I copy that right there and then come into my technician section, and import my technicians, I can paste right there, import them all very easily. I can also assign them the role. Everybody here, they are going to be a regional engineer. And so I will assign that particular role to them. Keep in mind, you do have the concept of being able to assign multiple roles to a user. And in that event that you assign multiple roles to a user, they are going to have whatever the most permissive permissions are. So if I gave somebody regional engineer permissions and system administrator permissions, they'd have system administrator permissions functionally. Regional engineer really wouldn't matter because they have a higher level that would supersede that. We'll import our users right there. They're all going to get emails so that they can get their accounts set up. They have those permissions so that they're going to be restricted based off of what we just saw there. We'll go back into my little checklist here. Now that we've imported our technicians, let's go down some of our other options here, which I won't necessarily be utilizing, but you may want to. For example, an identity provider, if you're using something like Azure or Okta and you want to have that serve as the focal point for any authentication, so you have to authenticate through your IDP first before being able to log in the Ninja, you can certainly enforce that. That was a little too much for me to put together for this webinar, sort of a unique Azure tenant or all these fake users to show that. So for the purposes of this webinar, we're just not using an IDP for login into Ninja. For security settings, I am going to modify one thing here just to help me out a little bit. I don't want to be bothered by the MFA global administrative time multiple times over the course of this webinar, so I will bump it up to its max of 2 hours. Of course, I might want to change this after I do the bulk of my configuration because it is a good security measure in place to ensure that you are who you say you are when you attempt to make these high-risk changes. I also have end users, which I will not be importing right now. End users give you the ability to actually log into the Ninja portal and see a far more restricted view of Ninja. It functionally gives you remote access and then optionally ticketing and backup self-service if you want it. Now, this is a great way to facilitate remote access for third parties. And so in my case, we have a particular third-party company that will occasionally need ad hoc access to specific machines. And so I can create them as an end user, give them temporary access, and then deny them that access once their particular function is done. And contacts are something that I think is more appropriate for ticketing, so we're going to skip that for now. We're going to skip down to the devices menu here on the left-hand side. We'll create some groups later, but for now, I want to look at our device roles. I have a few different distinct types of devices. I, of course, have my generic Windows workstations like desktops and laptops, and I also have my Windows servers. But I have specific subsets of those machines that I want to treat differently than all the other machines in my environment. Specifically, I have a tech PC. This is utilized by the operations technicians to manage all of the projectors, make sure that the right trailers are playing, modify the movie schedules. So it's a critical part of the workflow, and I need to make sure that I treat that differently than just a garden variety server, or a garden variety workstation. And so we'll create that additional device type there. Another type of device that is a workstation type that I want to create is a point of sale device. So all the concessions, all the box office, they need to have the ability to run credit card transactions, create orders. To me, that is a hybrid. It is less important than a server, but it's also more important than a workstation. And so I want to treat it differently with regards to things like patching schedules, what I want to monitor and alert in terms of the installed software. And I also want to take into account the fact that if that device is offline for a certain period of time, I need to know about it, which is something I don't necessarily want to put in place for a regular workstation that isn't mission critical. So we'll go ahead and create that device type as well. And then below here, we have our servers. In this case, we're going to do another two, one of which is point of sale server. This obviously runs the credit card transactions and does need to be treated differently for patching purposes and reboot cycles from our other servers that we have, because it is perhaps the most mission critical server at each distinct movie theater location. So we'll save that as well. And then I'll also add in another distinct server type, which is a TMS, or a theater management server. And what this does is this does the bulk of the scheduling as changes are made. This is making the schedules what they should be. It's keeping track of all the time, making sure everything is in sync. And it also holds all the actual digital movie files and then transfers them out to the individual auditoriums. So this is another incredibly important mission critical server. It does need to be treated differently with our policy settings. So I will create that device type right now. Question here, can device role set via PowerShell or API? Yes, you can use the API to set a device role. So now that I've created those roles, I am then going to create some custom fields. Now, again, I've done a little bit of homework here, and I'll again pull over my Excel spreadsheet here to show you the custom fields that I'm going to be creating. A lot of these custom fields that I'm creating, I am creating to serve as places where our template library scripts will dump information into. And this is something that will enhance our data collection, enhance our monitoring and alerting, and enhance our reporting as well. So this is a ton of great functionality here. So let's go ahead and get started creating these custom fields. There are two distinct types here: role-based custom fields that you would assign to a particular device role, like just a laptop or just a server. And then we have global custom fields, which would go to every single device. In this case, I'll start with my role-based custom fields. First and foremost, I want to create a custom field checkbox, a 1 or 0 functionally. And what this is going to do is tell me where I have made a change to block Windows 11 via the registry. I want to do this because a lot of people want to ensure that machines don't upgrade to Windows 11 until they actually want that to occur. And this lets me keep track of where I've made that change, so it's very easy for me to undo it inside of Ninja. Now, I also want to go ahead and create a Windows 11 status custom field for a separate script that is going to evaluate if the machine in question is actually able to upgrade to Windows 11 or not. And so this will be a text type field, like so. And again, it will have the ability to both read and write from automations, and then read only via the API, because I really don't want to set through the API whether this machine is compatible for Windows 11. The source of truth for that needs to be from the automation doing the checking. And so we'll save that there. I also want to go ahead and report on the power plans of a device. And for this, I'll use a multi-line field because I might have multiple lines of data that are returned here. So there's my power plan report, same read and write capability for automations, and same read-only capability for the API. I will then go into my global custom fields. And the global custom fields I'm going to create here are going to be multi-line fields that report on where I have local administrators. So everybody with local admins is going to be reported into a custom field. So I can look at that report and say, all right, should this person be an administrator and should they not? This is also very useful for monitoring and alerting in addition to reporting. Now for the definition scope here, this is an additional ability to have a global custom field at the organization level, the location level, and the device level. I think Kent has a question in the chat on this. So you do have the ability with the global custom field specifically to have something at the org level. If you have location and device below that, the fields do inherit. So a value set at the organization level will propagate down to the location level as well as the device level. In this case, I only want to set this at the device level because, again, the information is being populated by a script and doesn't make sense to set that at a top level like the org level. And I also want the ability to go ahead and look for just my users, period. And so I will have another multi-line field here with just my local users. Again, same familiar automation and API permissioning that we have seen previously. This will also be a device scope. And we'll go ahead and cut that a little short there. You guys don't want to watch me do a ton of data entry all day. We'll go into the roles section and then scroll down just a tad. We then need to actually add those role-based custom fields to our devices. Now, those are role-based because I really only care about this on workstations. I don't really care about it on servers. For starters, Windows 11 doesn't install on servers, so I really don't care about that, and I separately define all my power plan settings for servers from my workstations. So we'll add all those in there. And of course, the global custom fields are global. Everybody gets those. So I don't need to specify the assignment of those fields to a specific role. So now that I have created all my custom fields, I then need to import some of the scripts I'm going to utilize from the template library. Now, the template library is a phenomenal resource. If there is anything that, if any current Ninja customers are watching this and saying, what should I revisit that maybe I missed during the initial setup of my Ninja environment? What's something that can help me, improve my operation now that I'm already within the NinjaOne ecosystem? It's this. The template library is being added to all the time. We just had a huge drop that released towards the end of February, and we have more on the way. So this is constantly being updated. I will show just a few of my favorite scripts here. We mentioned, of course, the block Windows 11 script right here. So all the PowerShell code clearly visible here, very easy for me to import this. Now I am going to go ahead and import this with a slight modification. So I'll import here. This category is going to, well, I forgot to create my categories, missed that step in my checklist. So we'll just leave it inside of the maintenance category for now. I am going to make a slight modification here, which is the writing into a custom field that this action has been taken. So block Windows 11, the value here should be 1 to check the box, 0 to uncheck the box. So now when I run this script, this is going to actually indicate in a custom field in Ninja that we've made this change, which just makes it easier for me to track. The countdown does feel very 24. We should have had some dramatic music to play along with this, but I think these get posted to YouTube and they would probably copyright strike the video. We also need to check for our Windows 11 compatibility. No modifications required for this one. I am just going to set the custom field that I actually want to write this data into. That is called Windows 11 status. And hopefully you can see here the benefits of doing a little bit of homework via this Excel spreadsheet that I keep referring to, because I've kind of done all this stuff in advance. It makes it very easy to copy and paste. I don't have to toggle back and forth to find all this stuff. I know that this script needs to utilize this particular custom field. I know if I'm going to make any modifications to it. If I'd remembered to make my categories, I'd know which category I was going to put these inside of. And so we'll save that. We'll import that. All right. We'll do another few more of these very quickly. Active power plan report so that we can report that into a custom field. We can import that there. The admin report that I mentioned, local admins. We're also going to take advantage of some scripts that don't interface with custom fields, but that enhance device configuration. So for example, I want to make sure that I disable fast boot. And so this will disable fast boot on all our Windows 10 and Windows 11 machines. I also want to make sure I have the ability to enable the firewall. So I'll import the ability to toggle the firewall either on or off. And I mentioned earlier that I'm going to set an inactivity timeout. So right here, I can set a device configuration to set that inactivity timeout. Now, I also want to use some template library scripts to create alerts so that I can know when something has happened. For example, an inactive account. I'll have a script running on a recurring basis, and whenever account has been inactive for more than 90 days, I get an alert so I can then figure out if that person still needs that account and do a little bit of housekeeping to ensure that I have good security in place. Now, this is a very, very important one. I was a stickler for this. Movies got to start on time. I hate it when movies start late. So to ensure that all of my devices are on time, I am syncing the time for my servers and my workstations to an NTP server to ensure that everything is on time. This is incredibly important, especially around time changes like we just had last month. We'll go ahead and import this here. And lastly, an unlicensed copy of Windows. I have told this story before, but at one point the company I previously worked for had acquired a movie theater chain, and I walked into that building and there was not a single genuine copy of Windows running. Nothing was being patched. It was an absolute nightmare. So the ghosts of transgressions past are in my head here. So I want to make sure that never happens again. Question from Brad, are imported scripts updated from the source? They are not. So once you import the script, it is its own unique object or entity, and you can make as many changes as you want. You are not going to be impacted by any changes upstream. When there are new releases, you do need to re-import to get the updated version if you want that. So now we've imported all our scripts. Let's create some policies. So policies are the lifeblood of Ninja. They are the engine that makes Ninja go. All your important settings, what you want to monitor and alert on, when are you patching, what are you patching, applications that are patching, integrated antivirus, scheduled automations, all of those are policy settings. So very important in how we structure this. I am going to create policies that align with the device types that I created earlier. We mentioned tech PCs, so I will create that for workstations, and I will inherit from my global parent, which is my Windows Workstation policy. Now, the benefit of this is that I can have universal conditions, universal settings in that top level, and then I can override settings or create new settings in the child policies like this one right here. So when I create this policy, you'll see all my conditions here. They are inherited, and I can add new ones, override settings of current ones in order to make sure that devices on this particular policy are specific. I'm going to create some additional policies as well here. We mentioned point of sale, so we'll do our POS workstation, also inheriting from Windows workstations. Pretty simple policy set up on the workstation front. You have your overall parent here, and then you have two child policies inheriting below that parent. I'll also need to make my policies for servers as well. So I will create new policies here, one for my TMS server, also inheriting from my Windows workstation policy. And one for my POS server. Now let's go into our top level Windows workstation policy, and let's look at some of the settings that we want to put in place. Now for starters, you don't need to use everything that's out of the box. We give you 6 conditions out of the box, but I can see 2 already that I don't really care about. I don't really care about the print spooler service, so I can delete that one, and I'm not using TeamViewer, so I can delete that one as well. Now we have some templated conditions that could be very useful for you here. For example, I might want to monitor for drive errors via the event viewer. And so any event IDs relating to drive errors, I can click that, and that gives me a condition right out of the box that I don't need to do anything else with. I'll just be notified as those drive errors occur. Another one that I might want is for a user account. So we'll actually go down into the security section here, user account created or enabled, user account disabled or deleted, and when a user account has been locked out. Now, I should have very good controls in place to prevent anybody who's not me from being able to do that, which makes it all the more important that I have monitoring in place so that I know exactly when this is happening. If it's happening and I didn't do it, something's wrong. I need to investigate. Now, we also want to take advantage of some of the conditions we mentioned earlier. For example, I want to utilize antivirus health here. I want to know if antivirus is missing, disabled, outdated. We can ignore Microsoft Defender antivirus, and this is going to occur when the machine has been in this state for at least 1 hour. Now, you'll see here, this will reset after 4 hours or when no longer met, so as soon as the issue is resolved. And I do want to go ahead and create a ticket with this. Again, we're not focusing too much on ticketing right now, but I certainly plan to do another webinar on that in the future. We also want to monitor for the smart status. So whenever there's been issues with the drive, we can go ahead and be alerted that we might need to replace one of our drives here to make sure that the machine is able to operate effectively. I want to know when I have a patch score of greater than 9.0 for at least 2 days. So if the CVSS score is at or above that threshold, then it is going to create an alert, and I know that I have a critical patch here that I really should push out quickly. Now for script result condition, this lets me take some of the scripts that I imported earlier and convert them into alerts. So one we mentioned was inactive accounts. So right here, any inactive account over a period of 90 days, I'll be alerted on. What you're seeing right here, this data field, this is what's known as a script variable. And although the template library scripts usually come with them built in out of the box, any custom scripts that you have, you can add in your own script variables, which I love because it makes it very easy to take a complex, powerful script and make it very easy for somebody who doesn't know scripting, doesn't know PowerShell. It makes it very easy for them to utilize. It's very clear what you need to enter to get the desired result. Now, in this case, I'm going to run this every couple of hours. I really shouldn't have a high volume of inactive accounts here, so I really see no reason to run this frequently. I'm looking for a result code that is equal to 1, and I'm disregarding any text string output here. And if the script does not work, that's going to be an exit code equal to 2. So now I know when the script is alerting because it found something, an inactive account, or when the script is alerting because the underlying mechanics of the script are broken. And I also want to create a ticket for this as well. Add that in there. I will also use the NTP. Actually, we'll save that for our servers here. This seems pretty good. Now, I also want to go ahead and do some scheduled automations so that all workstations are being configured appropriately. So if we come in here, I can create a automation. It's going to do things like block the Windows 10 to Windows 11 upgrade. We'll set the target release version here to be 22H2, which is the last version of Windows 10. There should not be, at least Microsoft says right now, there shouldn't be any additional versions of Windows 10. We're going to run this once immediately. So as soon as new devices jump into the platform, we are going to run these scripts on them. This is ideal for configuring devices, making sure you have a standard across the board. It's ideal for doing things like provisioning brand new devices and ensuring they have the proper configuration set, proper applications installed. We also want to check for Windows 11 upgrade compatibility there. And I want to check, or no, we want to go ahead and set our inactivity timeout. And so our inactivity timeout here is going to be 15 minutes. You can see here an option, force if already set. We do want to go ahead and enforce what we are saying this should be. And so right there, you can see a great way to do some quick device configuration actions. Like I said, as soon as devices have Ninja installed and they are assigned to this policy or a child policy inheriting from this parent, they are going to have that script run on them. So those are some good device configuration actions here. Let's save that and let's go down to Windows patching. I'll turn Windows patching on here. I'm staying in control Windows patch management mode. My scheduling is going to be weekly, and I am going to be looking for new patches on Wednesdays. That's going to occur at 8 a.m., generally a very slow time for the movie theater industry. We want to run the scan immediately if the device happens to be offline, but practically speaking, most devices that we're managing here should be online the vast majority of the time. I'll also automatically wake up system. Now, the scan schedule is what identifies patches. The update schedules is what actually downloads and installs them. And so in this case, we're going to actually be downloading and installing weekly on Mondays. And again, we're going to keep that early in the morning. And so this means new patches will be detected on Wednesday and they're all going to be installed on Monday. That gives me a grace period in case there somehow happens to be a problem with the patch. I know that never happens, but if there is a problem with the patch, it gives me a little bit of time to hear about it and then ensure I can reject it so that I don't end up with a bunch of issues. I will run that immediately if missed as well. Wake up system. We don't have any metered connections, so I don't need to utilize that option here. In terms of my patch approval settings, I'm making just a few slight tweaks here. I don't want to reject low security updates. I just want to have manual approval over them. And then down here at the bottom, I want to look for any feature updates. Again, leaving that in a manual state so that I control when those feature updates get pushed. That does tend to be a big visual change to the end user. People notice it, people call me. I don't like that. So I want to have control and make sure I can communicate messaging out to people, letting them know, hey, this is going to happen. It's expected. It's standard operating procedure. It is all situations normal. And so we'll save that in the top right there. We'll do the same thing for our software patching. We want to go ahead and enable that here. Actually, one thing I forgot. We'll back up. Most patches these days are going to require a reboot. Ninja will natively identify when the reboot is required as the result of patching. To help move the trains along the tracks a little bit, you can prompt the end user to reboot. And in my case, I want to do that every 6 hours. I'm going to give them 6 bites at the apple until we enforce the reboot on them. That gives them 36 hours. That feels like a perfectly appropriate amount of time for them to reboot. I will also customize the dialogue here. There we go. I won't lie, my phone number was posted in every room of the movie theater. It was ridiculous to walk in there and see. If you have any sort of technical issue, anything with an on-off switch, call this number, and it was my number. Still a surreal experience, even though I haven't worked there for almost 4 years. Yep, the question here, you don't have to do this option. You have the option to do nothing. And in fact, for my server policy, that's the option I'm going to take. I prefer to reboot my servers at specific points in time. I don't like to have them tied to patching cycles. I want to have a specific time every week or every once a month where I can say, I know my server should reboot during this time. I don't like any wiggle room there. And so with this, you don't have to prompt. You could just do nothing and then handle the reboot on your own set schedule. Good question from John. And then if a user isn't logged in, you can either attempt to reboot at a specific time. I would probably, again, pick something super early in the morning because that's the slow time for movie theaters. Or again, I could just do nothing and handle this through perhaps a scheduled automation. Now we'll go down to the software patching. I will do nothing for my software patching. I don't really want to reboot machines as the result of software patching. So that is just a non-factor for me. In terms of my scan schedule, we are going to be looking weekly. However, we're going to look a little bit earlier in the day versus our Windows patching schedule. So we're going to be looking at 5 a.m. Actually, that should be 5 a.m. on Monday. Cardinal rule of the movie theater business is don't mess up the weekends. Friday, Saturday, Sunday, that's when you're making money. So I want to stay as far away from the weekend as I possibly can to prevent any sort of unexpected issues. And so the actual installation of these will occur, actually, let's keep this on Wednesday, and again at 5 a.m. Keep in mind here that not all applications support being updated in the background, so you do have the option here to force close applications to install updates. Again, this will close their application, so you want to make sure that this is an action you want to take. In my case, I don't. Applications will be patched when they need to be patched. I can always remediate manually here. I do not want to force close applications and potentially cause somebody to lose a bunch of work. People are always doing things like ordering supplies for the kitchen or the concession area in the browser. So if I close Edge or close Chrome or something, I don't want to cost them a whole bunch of work. Now, in terms of what I'm actually going to patch here, let's keep it very basic. Let's do Google Chrome. Let's do Firefox, because I know that there are multiple browsers installed on the devices. I also want to do all my Office products, and there unfortunately are a wide selection of Office products in use. There were still people using Office 2010, I think, when I left there. So I'll ensure that I have all my bases covered here with all the various versions of Microsoft Office, including what everybody should have, which is Office 365. And so now all these will be patched on the schedule that I set over here. I know I said I wasn't going to do anything backup related, but I am going to go ahead and do a quick backup here. We can go ahead and do our workstation backup to cloud. This is going to run weekly. I'm going to run this Wednesdays. Actually, we'll do Tuesdays here, and we'll do really early in the morning. We'll do 5 a.m. And so Tuesdays, we're going to go ahead and back up. We want to prevent the device from going to sleep, wake it up of sleeping, and run the plan immediately if it is missed. We're going to retain only 15 revisions here. We're going to trim anything that is older than 90 days, remove anything that has been locally deleted, but I want to keep a latest revision of the locally deleted file. And so we'll go ahead and select what we would like to back up. And it's going to be incredibly easy. I just want the user profile. That's where everything should be. And so right there, that makes it very easy to get a backup of all my devices as they're going to start to be deployed into my system. And finally, I did already do the configuration of the SentinelOne integration prior to this webinar. Again, just for security reasons, seemed like a bad idea to show the API key live on a call. But that integration setup took less than 5 minutes. It is incredibly easy. All I need to do at this point, after setting up my SentinelOne configuration, is come in here, say that I want to go ahead and actually install it. Let's say, see if I remember the email address I used here. I did. Awesome. And so now this will go ahead and be deployed as soon as we start onboarding some devices. Oh, a question here. Where do the backups go? They go to the AWS cloud because I selected the cloud option, but you do have the ability to back up to local storage as well if you'd like. All right, let's check my checklist here and see what else we have to do. We'll go ahead and skip some of the server stuff just in the interest of time. I can see that I am coming up on the end of my time here. I have about 8 minutes left. So let's go ahead and import some organizations. First and foremost, I'm using internal infrastructure as my template organization. So all the settings that I put in here, I can then copy to all my other organizations as I import them. The ones that I particularly care about here are going to be policies. I just created my policies, and so I want to map them here. POS server should be on the POS server policy. Point of sale devices should be on the POS policy. TMS should be on the TMS server policy. Tech PC should be on the Tech PC policy, and everybody else should remain the same. And so we can save that. And I also need to enable Ninja Remote. And so we'll enable the integration there. No Mac devices, so we'll remove that there. The end user does not get the ability to block me connecting to their devices. And then in terms of my advanced settings here, I'm going to use technician from company name. So it just lets them know it is Jeff from the IT department. It's totally fine for him to be remoted into my device. Oops, not sure how that went away. There we go. And so we've saved that there. I then need to go ahead and import my organizations. And fortunately, I have made a list here. If I go to import organizations and then paste from my spreadsheet, I'll see the 16 organizations, individual locations for movie theaters that we're going to be importing here. I'm going to use internal infrastructure as my template organization. I want to copy my policy settings and I want to copy my Ninja Remote settings to ensure that every organization we're importing has our remote access enabled and has the proper policy mappings so that everybody gets the right settings. Right there, we are all imported. One remaining thing to do here is actually assign the systray icon that we created at the beginning of the call. And so for editing our settings here, we will go ahead and switch this over, enable the systray there. Now, everybody in this organization or everybody in the environment is all going to be utilizing the exact same systray. All right, we have about 6 minutes left, so I want to make sure we get a chance to see some devices deployed. So right here, I have a domain controller. This was a machine that I deployed prior to the webinar, but I actually wanted to show, deploying through Active Directory within Ninja and seeing a whole bunch of devices populate into the environment. So we'll select the checkbox next to this machine here. We'll go down to run an ad hoc AD discovery job. We'll make this recursive just to find everybody. Now there's a lot of different machines in here. Let's go ahead and do all of my demo machines. We'll select all there. I do need to add in my credentials. And our credentials are good there. We're good to go. We can set our status and our location. We're just going to approve all these devices. They're all going to be going into one location, and then I'm going to parcel them out to the actual end organization and location that they should belong to. and we'll apply that. And so we should start to see a bunch of devices start to populate in here. I did want to showcase this section right here because I think it's really useful. This is the device search grid, and it has a few different use cases. One is that you can modify the views here. So if I want to add additional columns, I absolutely can. Maybe I want the agent install timestamp to be present. Maybe I want to include the uptime status. I can also include data that's been populated in custom fields. So for example here, the local administrator report. Perhaps I also want to see the Windows 11 status, as well as the whether or not I've blocked Windows 11 right here. And so I can really start to build out a customizable view right here of just the data that you really care about. Now, the nice thing about this is that up at the top, you can add in filters to narrow down the machines that you would like to see. It's very powerful. You can see organization, location, type of device, device role, which is where things like tech PC and point of sale really come in handy because I can be very specific about the type of machine that I want to see here. Most of the power isn't in the additional filters here, over 1,000 different queryable data points that you can use to narrow down the machines that you want to see. For example, BitLocker status, custom fields, we can see last uptime here, uptime over a certain amount. And so we can use those filters. Let's say I want to see anybody who doesn't have Google Chrome. No, actually, it's not even installed yet, so I can't see it. But I could go ahead and create a group. Let's change the example here. Let's say BitLocker that is disabled. And so I can actually save this and say this is my BitLocker disabled group, and create an automation inside the administration section under tasks to run recurringly across all devices that don't have BitLocker enabled and then enable BitLocker. It is a really handy workflow. We can have that run weekly, maybe every Monday, have a script to enable BitLocker, and then we could target our devices. And this wouldn't be organizations or devices because they're static. It would be a group, which is dynamic, which will show us anybody with BitLocker disabled per these search settings that we created earlier. This is just one example. Anything that you can create as a group from that search menu, that can be used as a dynamic target for automations. You can even use the custom fields, which means that you're no longer restricted to information that's native to Ninja. You have the ability to, anything you can script becomes a data point that you can then use in your automation process. And being let down here by my domain controller. Let's go ahead and check the status of the deployment here. You see, we're just waiting for the delegate to deploy here. Since we are towards the end of our time here, I am going to go ahead and stop my share, and I will bring out Andrew, who has a very exciting giveaway for us. However, before we go too far, I did want to say, if anybody does have any questions, if you want to continue the conversation here, please do so. Here is my contact information, jeff.hunter@ninjaone.com. If you have any questions, if you want to see more, please feel free to reach out. And with that, let me invite Andrew to give away our webinar prize. I will admit that I am partial to the Uni Pizza Oven.
Hi, everyone. My name's Andrew, and I'm the Marketing Programs Coordinator at Ninja. I'll be announcing today's webinar prize, but first, if you enjoyed hearing about Ninja's capabilities or the exciting fun prizes, or just enjoyed hearing Jeff speak for an hour, we've got an exciting new webinar coming up called Proactively Protect Automating and Strengthening Endpoint Security. Measure on April 16th at 11 a.m. ET, and I'll drop that in the chat, so feel free to check that out or register. But in the meantime, going back to the prizes, today's webinar winner will be able to choose between an Uni Pizza Oven, $300 Amazon gift card, or a PS5. And with that, the winner of today's webinar prize is Kent Gerard. Everyone drop a huge congratulations in the chat. Kent, please keep an eye out in the following days to claim your prize. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Andrew. And real quick, before we sign off for today, I did want to share my screen so that I can showcase the deployment process through Active Directory happening in real time. And so there you can see we already had a bunch of devices pop in. I think ultimately we'll probably have about 40 devices show here. And so all these devices will just roll out very quickly. And already we can see that we have some actions happening on this device. We have our run once immediately script executed. And that's going to go ahead and do some of that device configuration we talked about, like blocking Windows 11, checking for Windows 11 upgrade compatibility status. I know we're over time, so thank you everyone who attended today and have a very good rest of your day. Take care.